Hope everybody's doing well today. Today we're going to present on Eagle Industries. In our group, we have Mallory, Alex, Kyle, and Dan. Okay, I'm going to give you a little outline of what we're going to present on today. First, we'll give an overview of Eagle Industries and do a SWOT analysis of one of their products. Then we're going to go into the 4 different countries we're doing: Canada, Germany, UK, Sweden, Argentina. Then we're going to wrap it up with the recommendations. Company overview and mission. Eagle Industries is a market leader and a global source for industrial and construction job site products and solutions. They specialize in making tarps, shrink wrap, and concrete curing blankets, containment tarps, and a wide range of job site building enclosures. Their mission is to provide outstanding services, knowledge, and industry experience to marketplace and offer solutions that make customers more efficient and more profitable on each and every job site. The product overview, we're going to do Scafflight. Scafflight's a product they asked us to focus on. It's a heavy-duty tarp. Here are some of their features they have. It's highly tear-resistant, reinforced sheeting. It's water-resistant, mildew-resistant, and remains flexible in cold weather climates. It is also UV treated. Some of the benefits that the Scafflight provides a total weather protection enclosure, provides contamination from dust and debris, increases temporary heating efficiencies, and reduces time and labor during installation. It's got a simple install process. A little SWOT analysis of the Scafflight. It's a versatile product for all types of construction products. One thing that the Eagle Industry does is hire local distributors to sell directly to consumers, which helps them in the distributing areas. They have economics of scale. They have a Chinese supply manufacturer. A few weaknesses they have is the product can only be used in weather with harsh regions. It's dependent on low supply costs in Asian countries. Also, one weakness they have is it can be easily replicated and duplicated. Some opportunities they have is to expand in international locations, which we looked into during this project. They can have opportunity to perfect economics of scale and expand product lines and make different kinds of tarps. They can also gain brand recognition and increase sales revenue. A couple threats: their business model is kind of easily to duplicate. Their supply manufacturer could close, which could cause problems in finding where to get the tarps from, different companies. And also, new businesses and newcomers to the market could become opposing threats. All right, so like I said, these are our 5 countries. Now I'm going to pass it to Alex to talk about Canada.
Great. Hi, all. My name's Alex, and I'll be discussing Canada's viability as a global opportunity for Eagle Industries. So first of all, Canada boasts one of the largest economies in the world, with a total nominal GDP of $1.8 trillion and a total per capita GDP of $1.97 trillion. The estimated GDP growth is 1.5%. Now, obviously, as you can see from the chart, there has been an economic downturn due to the coronavirus, but the future outlook remains positive for 2021, supported in large part by investment in infrastructure, which bodes really well for Eagle Industries. Canada also boasts a strong trade partnership with the United States. They have one of the most comprehensive bilateral trade agreements in the world. However, recently they have replaced NAFTA with the US-Mexico-Canadian agreement ever since the election of Donald Trump. This went into effect on July 1st, so it's something to look out towards since there have been some trade tensions between the 2 nations. Next slide. So Canada's business environment is favorable to Eagle Industries. They were ranked the 6th best country to do business in the Forbes ranking and 23rd in the Doing Business ranking. This is in large part due to high trade and personal freedoms and high investor protections, as well as relatively low corruption rates and bureaucratic red tape. Actually, to start a business in Canada is a very simple 2-step process, entirely online, and only costs 200 Canadian dollars. So it's pretty simple. They also ranked 17th in the Logistics Performance Index, and they are having increasingly government investment in infrastructure. Another important aspect of the business environment is Canadian culture. They are an English-speaking nation. They're very similar to the United States. However, they do maintain a separate cultural identity. Some things to remember when doing business in Canada is to be polite, punctual, formal, and well-informed about your business interests without exaggeration. Next slide. So the construction market in Canada is also a really great opportunity for Eagle. They have the fifth largest construction market worldwide, which contributes to about 7% of GDP. Construction employs 1 in 14 working Canadians. It's forecasted for continued growth through 2023 at an estimated $304.6 billion. Also, the value of projects in Canada is for the top 52 projects, it's over $1 billion. And they're specially centered in cities like Toronto and Vancouver, which could be good cities for Eagle to market their product towards. Additionally, in their doing business rankings, the ease of obtaining construction permits, they were 64th. For electricity, they were 124th, and credit, they were 15th. So they are still competitive in that market as well. There are also a number of partners that Canada has or that there are a number of regional partners that Eagle could use in Canada. So 2 of their current global distributors have offices in Canada, which will really help the distribution of the Scaffoldite product. However, there are some regional competitors. For example, Canadian Tarpaulin Manufacturers Limited offers reinforced poly tarps that are very similar to Eagle's product. And Norseman Incorporated is the largest supplier and manufacturer of industrial fabric products in North America. So they're another possible competitor to Eagle in Canada. However, the Canadian construction market is so large that their competition is rather de-densified. So this still is a good opportunity for Eagle. And now some other factors to bear in mind when thinking about Canada is they have a really cold climate with very harsh winters, which is an ideal market for the Scaffoldite product. Also, there's a strong national focus on environmental protection and preservation, and Scaffoldite can be reusable, so that's another point in its favor. Also, as previously discussed, the current state of the trade relationship with the US is continuing to evolve, so that could be something just to keep in mind for the future when thinking about exporting their product. So I'm going to pass it on to Dan now to talk about Germany and the United Kingdom.
Yeah, hi. Thank you very much, Alex. So I will talk about 2 European nations. One, Germany, which is a part of the European Union, and the second one, United Kingdom, which used to be part of the European Union, but has left the European Union in the famous Brexit vote of 2016. And the implications of being part of the European Union, I think, will become apparent as we go through each country. So first, Germany. Germany, its total GDP ranks it in the top 5, whether you look at it from a nominal standpoint or a purchasing power parity standpoint. It's about 4 trillion for when you look at it from each standpoint. And as with every country in 2020, every economy has declined, but in 2021, the GDP growth in Germany and what they call the Eurozone, which is the 27 member nations of the European Union, is expected to grow by 4.5%. Next slide. Germany is a very pro-business country from a lot of different ways you look at it. It's the 14th best country to do business according to the Forbes ranking. It's 22nd according to doingbusiness.org. Specifically, and I think this is very important for our company, it has a very good infrastructure. It's actually rated the country with the best, or one of the countries with the best infrastructures, and it's the country with the best logistics performance index, which basically means that the country functions well in terms of the infrastructure, the way things, the judicial and legal system all tie together, contracting and credit, and so on and so forth. And this is important for our company because having a good infrastructure is they need a country that's building they have bridges and a good electrical grid so that it will promote construction. And if it has construction, then their product will be needed. And Germany is considered the best country in the world from an infrastructure and a logistics standpoint, and it's very high up from a business standpoint. Next slide. And from a construction standpoint, it's ranked as the 8th largest construction market worldwide, and it continues to be in the top 10 in terms of growth on a yearly basis. Next slide. when we look at some other aspects of doing business in Germany, ease of obtaining construction permits, ease of obtaining electricity, they're not as high as some countries, 30th, 5th, and 48th, especially obtaining credit. And I think this actually speaks to some of the business etiquette that is important in Germany. Germans are highly structured and very rules oriented, and they're very detail oriented. So you have to pay attention to the rules and regulations, and being on time is very important. Being well dressed is very important. And I think this is one of the things when you look at Germany, that's why you see some structure and probably more regulation than in other countries in terms of getting these kind of construction type of details taken care of. But it is important based on when we look at business etiquette that if to expand into Germany, you'll need Germans doing business with Germans, at least initially, to help with the expansion and growth. Next slide. From a distribution standpoint and from a marketing standpoint, please go back. We skipped ahead one, but from a marketing standpoint, two of the three biggest construction companies in the world, AECOM and Flora, are co-located in Germany. Bechtel is not, but Bechtel is located throughout the European Union and other countries. So we kind of see Germany as sort of a beachhead from which Eagle could expand throughout the European Union and take advantage of the whole gross domestic, the GDP of the whole European Union, just not just Germany alone. And finally, other factors we talk about, it is a cold climate, just like Canada. And as I mentioned, it's part of the Eurozone economy, which is made up of 27 member nations, which offers a large market for growth. Especially, they'll probably want to focus on countries in the northern part of the European Union, which are colder. But if they can be successful in Germany, then they can establish distribution throughout the rest of the countries in a frictionless manner, because the rules and regulations for trade and business are very similar throughout the European Union. There are no trade tariffs among the 27 member nations. So it's actually a jumping off point for the rest of the European Union that could be a huge business opportunity for Eagle. So then we'll then go to the next slide. We'll talk about the United Kingdom. Now, the United Kingdom has a number of attractive qualities similar to Germany, and we'll go through them real quick. But one of the main things is that they're leaving the European Union, so they're no longer a part of this free trade economy, and the economic impact of leaving the European Union has some risk for the United Kingdom, and obviously for businesses that plan to do business with the United Kingdom. So the positives: it has a large GDP, again, both from a nominal and a purchasing power parity standpoint. It ranks in the top 10 in both, about $3 trillion overall, and it's also expected to grow next year, even though this year is going to be a down year. Next slide. The business environment, it's actually considered the best country to do business according to Forbes, and it's the 8th best according to doingbusiness.org. It's one of the countries with the best infrastructure, and its Logistics Performance Index, or LPI, is the 6th best in the world. Next slide. Again, construction market. The construction market currently is not rated in the top 10 worldwide, but from 2020 to 2030, it's expected the growth of the construction market is expected to be in the top 10 worldwide. So as you can see, we're going through these slides. There's a lot of similarities between Germany and United Kingdom. Next slide. Some other things: 23rd, 8th, and 37th in terms of ease of obtaining construction permits, ease of obtaining electricity, ease of obtaining credit, relatively comparable to Germany. Next slide, please. It is the three biggest construction firms who essentially are the partners with which Eagle makes contact and tries to get involved in their projects. AECOM, Bechtel, and Flora, they all have offices in the United Kingdom, which is obviously a positive as well. Next slide. It is also a cold climate, which is a positive. But I think one of the main factors here, and one of the reasons that's the cause for concern, is that if they expand into the United Kingdom, there's a lot of economic and political risk because the UK voted to leave the European Union, the Brexit vote, and now you essentially would only be expanding into a single economy that actually, although it's forecasted to grow next year, over the long term, it may be expected to be contracted because they're leaving the European Union. And if you start in the United Kingdom and then try to expand into other Europe, it's like you're essentially starting all over and going into a new country altogether with all new processes, rules, regulations, tariffs, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's a lot of concern for expanding only into a single economy. Although it's a big economy, it's a single economy versus Germany, which is a single economy, which is a gateway to a much larger economy, which makes United Kingdom a cause for concern. For now, I'm going to turn it over to Mallory, who's going to talk about Sweden. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Yes, I'm going to talk about Sweden and rate the potential basically for Eagle to pursue this international market. Out of the Nordic nations, I did choose Sweden because it has almost double the population of any of its neighbors, and it does have the largest economy in Scandinavia. The total GDP nominal is 0.54 trillion, and then the purchasing power parity is 0.58. And the GDP growth is forecasted to be 4.5%. So as you can see, for its size, it does have a very significant economy. And also, even though it did dip, as with a lot of other countries, almost all countries, it does have pretty strong forecasted growth for next year. Next slide, please. The business environment for Sweden is very appealing for Eagle. It has great political freedom, a very competitive economy, and great growth projections. Is ranked second, according to Forbes, as the best country to do business in. It has great infrastructure, comparable to every other European country, if not better, and it's ranked second for its LPI, the Logistics Performance Index, which is based on customs, trade, and transport. It is a coastal nation, so it really relies on exports and therefore has a very, very strong infrastructure to make sure it's connecting its airports to its harbors to its cities. Next slide, please. And ranking as far as starting up a business in Sweden, it's ranked 31st for getting construction permits, 10th for electricity, 80th for credit, and it has the 4th highest internet usage rate in the world. So even though the credit rating is hard to get, the other two categories are fairly comparable. And in order to partner with the construction companies, all you need is a tax credit and a credit rating. So only 2 hurdles to get through. Next slide, please. The construction market in Sweden in 2019, it grew 2% and averaged 5.6% from 2014 to 2015. So it has a steady increase, very promising growth over that time. And it plans from 2019 to 2030 to spend $64 billion on infrastructure projects. So it's really trying to increase all of the connections between its cities and, like I said, the other modes of transportation. It is very focused on innovation and green initiatives. That's part of Sweden. Their business culture is that they're very dedicated to being green in everything that they can, whether it's their personal lives or doing business. And within the construction market in Sweden, there are 4 major construction firms that make up 60%, PIB, Skanska, NCC, and JM. And as you can see here, PIB, I'll just move for a second. This is in billion for kroners. And so it almost has 39 billion income that it's had. So it makes up a huge share of the market. And as far as Eagle's partner firms, there's only 1 office for ACOM in Stockholm, Sweden. So it's extremely competitive, and basically Eagle would have to break into these new firms and make connections there in order to capture the supplier market. Next slide, please. So other factors to consider, Sweden is very cold. It's ranked 13th for the coldest climates worldwide. They really value strong relationships and trust. There's very, very little corruption within Sweden. So there's opportunity here to expand to other Nordic countries. They all have similar characteristics, and as far as their business style, their commitment to being green and to invest in innovation. And so that's one aspect with Eagle. Their product is, compared to a lot of products, much greener. It can be reused. It only needs to be applied once. It's much better quality, so it saves a lot of energy. So it may be very appealing for the Swedish market. It's just hard to say because Sweden has such a high standard, the sustainability of that product. So they could have a fit with it, but a lot relies on that. And digital marketing was just something I want to mention. 94% of Swedes are online, and Eagle already uses email marketing, which would also remain very effective in Sweden. So they already can use that strategy. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kyle to talk about Argentina.
Great, thanks, Mallory. My name's Kyle, and I'll be talking about Argentina. I think it's interesting to note that when we first met with Mr. Calvo at Eagle Industries, he gave us 2 countries that he and his company were focused on or looking at expanding into, and Argentina was one of them. I think this will provide him some good insight. So from a total GDP versus nominal and PPP, Argentina ranks right under 30, 28 and 29th respectively. And their GDP growth over the last number of years has been in the red. So 2.5, negative 2.2, obviously higher for the coronavirus 2020. And they are forecasting an uptick up to 2.1 next year. Next slide. However, given that somewhat competitive GDP rank, their business environment scores across the board are frankly quite poor. They rank 76th as the best country according to Forbes. They're 126th for the best business to do according to Doing Business. They're 119th for trade freedom. There's 13 metrics that go into this Better Business ranking. I averaged them up, and they rank 120th out of 191 countries across 13 metrics, with their highest being in the 60s and the rest of them above 100. Next slide. The construction market and environment is relatively small in Argentina. Argentina's main export and what they mostly do is soybeans and farming. They have a rich agricultural land. I think Eagle was interested in Argentina because it is Arctic cold in a certain region. It's the 8th largest country in the world. However, the south of Argentina is really protected by conservationists, as there's some beautiful natural parks down in that region. And so the GDP by sector is small, the labor force is small, and I'll talk about this a little more, but the politics of the country are really the reason. They've had political turmoil over the last few years, and a lot of the construction done in Argentina is done by outside countries. So China actually has got a bid to do some of their nuclear reactors and some of the dams in the country, and the United States, through their OPIC program, has funded a lot of their construction in railways. So a lot of the investment is coming from country-backed initiatives. Next slide, please. More about the market and environment to do business. It ranks 155th for obtaining permits, 111th in electricity, 104th in obtaining credit. Again, a lot of oversight by the government makes it very challenging for new businesses to enter the market. The crumbling infrastructure isn't very helpful. They do have a lot of access and roads that lead to Buenos Aires, but that is really about it in terms of their environment. I will say that Argentinians are very family oriented. So in order to do business there, you're encouraged to take your time. Don't jump straight into business. They like punctuality. They like individuals to be well dressed and be very respectful. Next slide, please. Regarding the co-location of the firms that Eagle does do business with, AECOM and Flower do have offices in Buenos Aires. Bechtel does not. I personally, and I started to look into this a little bit, think that the reason that they have offices in Argentina is because they also have offices in Brazil. A preliminary analysis looking into Brazil, they rank much higher in all of these domains. And that is probably a logical expansion next. But again, that's the way it stands in Argentina. For their channels, new businesses are encouraged to go through distributors or have a sales agent who goes to trade fairs. These are the current channels that Eagle works through in the United States, so something they would be comfortable with if they made their respective Argentinian contacts. Next slide, please. Finally, just some other factors. Like I briefly mentioned, they've gone through quite different political regimes in the last few years. This past May, they missed a deadline, prompting them to miss about 500 million in already delayed bond coupons, and that's their 9th sovereign debt. They currently have 10 billion in foreign currency reserves and owe the IMF around 20 billion in the next couple years, torn by swings of politics, and ranked close to the bottom for global corruption indices. That's my last slide. I'll turn it over to Corey, who's going to talk about some recommendations. Thank you.
All right, now I'm going to give you all the recommendations. For Canada, we said yes, mainly because they have a cold climate with strong economic outlook and a thriving construction industry. They also have close proximity and similar culture to the United States, where Eagle does the majority of their business. It mirrors Eagle's existing global partnership. Next, we chose Germany and gave it a yes. It's got a cold climate with strong economic outlook and thriving construction industry, just like Canada. It's a member of the European Union with ease of expansion to other 27 membering nations. Then we got to United Kingdom. We said no. It has a cold climate with strong economic outlook and thriving industry, but it's no longer a member of the European Union. And with political and economic risks, we thought it wasn't safe to go there. Essentially expanding into a single economy, which wasn't the best choice. Next, we said no to Sweden. The construction industry is very competitive at this time. Ecom is the only one office located in Sweden that Eagle already works with. Not many connections already there. It's unclear how well Eagle's products would meet Sweden's innovative and green standards. Added transportation costs of shipping the product all the way to Sweden was also a downfall. Then for Argentina, we said no at this time. Eagle industry should not continue for expansion. Despite having a large cold region of a country where the most of construction is not done in this area. Despite being in the top 30 in the GDP, they average 120 out of 194 countries of doing business metrics, which wasn't very enticing. Finally, the country is unstable economically, mostly due to drastic change in political leadership and high corruption. That's the end of our presentation. Thank you for all your time. We appreciate it.